At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. My website's emailrevealer.com. You can get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Also to adoption investigations, locates, asset searches, all kinds of fun stuff at emailrevealer.com. Show's brought to you by getthetea.com. Life Change Tea. My buddy Ronnie over there at getthetea.com just sent me another couple of packages of this Life Change Tea, so I'm just drinking this stuff. It tastes so good. First thing in the morning, I haven't had a cup of coffee in over 2 months. Haven't had a cup of coffee. Swam 100 laps last Friday, guys. Friday morning. Swam 100 laps in the pool. I haven't been working out too much since then because they closed the pool for 14 days. But I'm way down. I'm 190 pounds, which is the lightest I've been in years. You remember I've been doing this Daniel fast for years and years. I couldn't get below 211. I'm down to 190. I look really good, too. We're going to take some pictures. Me and Vic took some pictures out there hiking with my shirt off. So we're going to post those pictures. You can see what this tea is doing for me. GetTheTea.com, Life Change Tea. Trust me on this stuff, guys. Try it out. You're going to love it. By the way, we have upcoming May 11th, I'm going to be doing a telethon over at Amy Villela's campaign headquarters. She's running for Congress in this Congressional District 4, CD4. And I'll be doing about an hour of the telethon. And we're trying to get John Barber, too, to come down, too. We just interviewed John Barber. We're trying to get him to come down, too. He's a local guy here. He was on Real People. He was the first guy on the Gong Show before Chuck Barris came in and took over. So we'll be doing a little telethon there to raise money for Amy Villela's campaign. Her website is amyforthepeople.com. Okay, we got a fascinating topic for you here. It's so hard to believe. Our guest is Kendall Carver, and he's the head, I don't know if he's the chairman of the president, I'll ask him in a second, of the International Cruise Victims Association. International Cruise Victims Association. Imagine that we need an association for victims of cruises. You think of Captain Stubing and the Love Boat. You think this pleasure. You're going to go there, have a lot of fun. My daughter, my ex-wife, went on a cruise, but there's a serious problem with crime and unreported crime and uninvestigated crimes going on these international cruises. In fact, our guest Kendall Carver was a victim of this himself. He lost his daughter in one of these atrocious acts. The website is internationalcruisevictims.org. Mr. Carver, are you there?
I'm here. Good to be here, Ed.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. Tell us about yourself before we get into the whole international cruise victims. Tell us about who is Kendall Carver?
Well, Kendall Carver was born in a little town in Iowa many years ago. Went to the University of Iowa. Took a job on a college interview with an insurance company and spent about 37 years with them. Ended up president of the company in New York City for 18 years. So we kind of did the typical route of getting a job at college, being with them, and I was fortunate enough to end up as president of their New York company. So it's been an interesting career that kind of prepared me for my life after retirement. Okay, great. So if you lived in New York, then you shouldn't have too much problem with my New York fast-talking New York accent. Okay, so that's good news. Now,
How did you get involved? I know you lost your daughter. Is that what instigated your whole interest in this international cruise system?
Yeah, that was really the beginning. I could never have anticipated that losing a daughter would take us to where we are today, but it did. We have 4 daughters. The daughter that went missing was 40 years old. Her name was Marion Carver. And she had a daughter, and she was divorced from her husband. And Marion had joint custody with her husband. He lived in Europe, and Marion lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And she and her daughter talked daily. And one day, Marion didn't respond to the phone calls. So after a few days, her daughter called me and said, "Gee, I can't get a hold of Mother. Would you check it out?" And didn't really think there was a problem. But we started contacting Marion and got no response. So that was the beginning of a long odyssey, which goes on today. It was starting with myself, and then I can kind of lead you through the development of ICV to the point that we now have corporations in Australia, Britain, and the United States, and have members in 34 countries in the world.
Well, did we ever find out what happened to Marion? She was on a cruise. Where was she cruising to or from?
Well, getting back to looking for Marion, after about 7 days, I contacted the Cambridge police and said, "Hey, I can't get a hold of my daughter. Could you check out her place in Boston?" And they went in and checked her place in Boston, found everything in order, no sign of anything, no sign of any problems. So that started us on this journey. And so the first thing we did is that we hired a law firm in Boston and took the necessary steps to take control of Marion so that we could fully investigate what was going on. And after about 3 weeks, the Cambridge police contacted me and said that they had traced a credit card transaction. They were able to get into her bank accounts to a cruise ship. And Marion took cruises frequently. She was 40 years old, divorced, very attractive. And but after 3 weeks, the Cambridge police contacted me and said that they determined that she'd been on a celebrity cruise ship. Celebrity was owned or is owned by Royal Caribbean. So I contacted Royal Caribbean and said, "Gee, was our daughter on your ship?" And a couple of days later, they got back and said that she was on the ship, but they didn't know if she got off the ship or not. And we said, "Well, is there any video of Marion on your ship?" And they said no, that after 3 weeks, they'd gotten rid of any video. They destroyed it. So we were too late. So we said, "Can we talk to the steward, somebody that had seen Marion on the ship?" And for us to finally talk to that steward, which seemed like a pretty simple request, it took us 4 months, $75,000.
Oh.
They had to take court action in Massachusetts. Then they had to take court action in Florida. Then we had to hire a Florida law firm. So just to interview the steward was a $75,000 cost. Most people wouldn't go through that. But we felt at least we wanted to talk to somebody that had seen her on that ship. So finally in January, Marion had gone missing the 28th of March. Finally in January, of 2005, we had the deposition, and we were on the telephone. And they deposed the steward. And to our amazement, the steward said he'd reported Marion missing daily after the second day on the cruise to his supervisor. And the supervisor's response was, forget it and just do your job. So the next day, he reported her missing, got the same results, same response. So that went on for about until the cruise ended in Canada. And so the steward then went to the supervisor and said, well, what do I do with the stuff in the room? And the supervisor...
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
I just said, just put it in a bag and put it in my locker. And at that point, they had notified no one. So in effect, the cruise line knew 2 days into the cruise that she was missing, but failed to take any action. They didn't contact the FBI. They didn't contact us. They did nothing and disposed of her items. And so that started a long process with private detectives and ourselves that went on for months. And finally, in January, when I realized that they'd been covering up her disappearance, I wrote a letter to the board of directors. And I said, hey, help us. Our daughter's gone missing. And it appears that her missing has been covered up by the people on the cruise ship. Well, that got us zero. That got us nothing. Now, you would think the board, with fiduciary responsibilities, would have responded, but they didn't. Mr. Fain at that point was chairman of Royal Caribbean, and I just read yesterday he got paid $10 or $11 million last year, the highest paid leader of a cruise line. And so we wrote him and said, hey, we'd like to talk to you. And we ended up with somebody way down the list. In my background, I've been chairman of a company in Washington, D.C., and I wasn't intimidated by anybody. And if somebody called, a customer with major complaints, I talked to him. Well, clearly, Fain was not willing to talk to me. So he put it down the list. And the person that he referred me to said, oh, we'll cooperate. So then for another 5 months, the detectives were asking for information concerning Marion. And they got nowhere. Couldn't get anything. And but we did get one thing that was really quite important. We got 3 emails internally written by the staff at Royal Caribbean. Number one, discussing the fact that they disposed of our items. Number two, that they wrote a memo to the 15 people that worked with the steward saying, has anybody talked to the steward? And if so, make sure that nobody gets to the steward. And then they wrote the steward, and he said, no, I've not talked to anybody. So in effect, they were setting up a cover-up of her disappearance instead of doing the right thing. And one thing that we also determined from the one picture we got from the cruise ship and the deposition that Marion carried on a manila envelope. And the cruise lines recovered that manila envelope. It was in a room. So we kept asking, what's in the manila envelope? We'd like to see it. And finally they admitted they disposed of it. So in effect, we were dealing with a corporation that was covering up the crime, doing everything to hinder our investigation of the crime. And, when you're a victim, let me just say this, when you're a victim, you kind of assume that you're the only person in the world this has happened to. Mm. Well, that June of 2005, a book came out, Devil in a Deep Blue Sea. And in that book, they discussed Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Line. And one of the sections in that book said, cover-up was the standard operating procedure on crimes. That's just the way they operated. And they'd get the crew member off the ship and send him back to India or Indonesia, or wherever he was. And that was the standard way they operated. So we read the book and realized we weren't dealing with exception. We were dealing with the way they do business.
Now, you were able to get this deposition because you filed some kind of a civil action in order to, who'd you sue?
Well, we had to file action in Massachusetts. Then they had to refile it in Miami, Florida, because all these cases, the cruise lines set cases up. If I live in New York, you got to file the claims in Miami. And so people run into this, that they can't file it. If you lived in Iowa, you can't file a claim in Iowa. You got to go to Florida to file the claims. Well, that's a hindrance for people doing anything. And but that's the steps we had to take. And that cost the one lawyer in Florida just to talk to us cost us $10,000. And with the private detectives and the law firm in Boston, it wasn't hard to run up $75,000 of expenses just to try to get to what was going on, what happened to our daughter.
Were you able to prevail in that civil litigation?
The answer is yes and no. We ended up, after I think about in June of 2005, I've been spending daily working with the detectives, trying to sort out what was happening. But, you reach a point in life, you say, I can't do this forever, and it just, they're doing everything to avoid us, to take any action, to give us answers. So when I read the book about this the way they handle crimes, I determined that was their operating procedure. Now, we're just an individual and dealing with a major corporation, a major industry. Now, how have the cruise lines set up their business? Well, they put Royal Caribbean's based in Liberia. Carnival is based in Panama. So they're foreign corporations. But then they turn around and they register their state, their ships in flag states like the Bahamas, Mongolia, Liberia, Panama. And that's where they register their states because they know that these countries are, number one, cheap, and number two, they take no action in regards to claims. Now, this brings up a point we're going to be going back and forth here. But when we eventually got to Washington, and I'll talk more about that later, the cruise lines say, we are the safest form of transportation, and we are highly regulated. That is their standard answer concerning safety. Well, they belong to the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. That's a division of the United Nations. Well, that sounds good to the average person. Gee, they're registered, they're a member of the IMO. Well, in fact, the IMO, and I have this in the document, does not take any action in the case of crimes. They're not policemen. They don't find the cruise ships. They really don't do anything. They refer the individual to these flag states, knowing that the flag states are the enforcer and the flag states do nothing regarding the proper enforcement. So when the cruise lines say they are highly regulated, I have to say that's baloney. They're not highly regulated because the flag states don't regulate them. The IMO doesn't regulate them and take action when crimes occur. So they're operating pretty much on their own. And that's what people find out. So,
wait, well, this might be a good time to take a commercial break. We're with Kendall Carver. Now, are you the president or the chairman?
I'm the chair.
Chairman of International Cruise Victims Association. You can find that at internationalcruisevictims.org. A tragic story he's telling us about his daughter, Miriam Carver, disappeared on this cruise ship. And then the cruise company basically gives him a runaround and does nothing but cover up. We'll be right back with more of Kendall Carver after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subhash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find the link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also AwakeRadio.us.
People are waking up. They're standing up to those pushing pesticides and GMOs as safe alternatives for a starving world. What a bunch of crap! I tell you, I'd rather eat dirt. So I drink Life Change Tea. It's an herbal drink, cleansing my body of toxic sludge and nasty chemicals, and of course, ridding the intruders that are hidden in my so-called food. And by the way, Life Change Tea is non-GMO and organic. No fillers, no yuck. Just a great defense against you-know-what. May the supplement force awaken you. Don't fall to the dark side. Sorry. I went to the movies last night. Anyway, enough said. How do you get that herbal drink and change your life? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. You will awaken. You will get stronger, and you might even lose a bit of weight. So awaken to Life Change Tea and the many one-of-a-kind supplements at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. May the supplement force be with you.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you can get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Kendall Carver, who's the chairman of the International Cruise Victims Association. You can find the website at internationalcruisevictims.org. Mr. Carver, I got some questions for you. Now, you said you contacted the Boston PD, but who would have jurisdiction over a crime on a cruise ship between Boston and Canada?
Well, the answer is we didn't know Marion was on a cruise ship.
Right.
All we knew that she was missing. So clearly it was the Cambridge police, not the Boston police. If I said Boston, it was incorrect. Clearly, for a missing person, you would go to the district where they lived, which was Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Right.
And eventually, they traced this ticket to Seattle and then to Vancouver. And the interesting thing about that, when we determined that Marion was missing, the cruise lines instructed the Cambridge police to notify the Vancouver police of this crime, of her missing. Well, the cruise lines failed to take that action, and they only reported to the FBI roughly a month after Marion had gone missing. And theoretically, it should have been handled by the Canadian police, and that was the request. But if somebody goes missing, you go to the local police department. Now, they had no idea that Marion was on the ship, but they did follow through and trace where she was.
Okay, gotcha. And also, so what would happen? Are there police on these cruise ships? Like, what would happen if there was a crime, like let's say a fist fight on the cruise? Are there police on the cruise who would make an arrest? And is there a way to detain a suspect?
The answer is no. You have to look at a cruise ship like a city. It's got thousands of people on it. It's got cooks and entertainers, and people that do the laundry and the maids.
Right.
And the passengers. It's like a resort. And a captain who acts as the mayor. The one thing they don't have are independent policemen. They have no policemen. Now, they have people that call themselves security, but they work for the cruise lines, and they have no authority. They cannot arrest people. So that people have this false sense of security that the security of the cruise ship is going to take action. The security of the cruise ship's job is to protect the cruise lines. So getting back to Mary's case, every 2 weeks somebody goes missing on a cruise ship. So far this year, there have been 17 that have gone missing. And the other crime, large number of sexual rapes. So the rape victim will call the security on the cruise ship and they say, "Gee, I've been raped." So the security comes in, writes a report, and then they go to the person, and a lot of times, probably half the time, it's the crew member that's raped the individual, and they ask the crew member, "Did you rape this individual?" And he says, the answer is, it was consensual. So they write it up. It was a he said, she said. Then give the report to the FBI. The FBI says, he said, she said. So they do nothing, in those cases. They're too hard to prove. Now, that has been changed, and we can get into that with major legislation in the past. But the security of the cruise ship is non-existent as you think of as an independent person. And let me give you an example. Somebody said, I want to set up in Iowa a resort, and we're going to go in and we're going to serve unlimited alcohol. We're going to lock the doors when you get on that ship. And if you're raped, there is no policeman. Well, they wouldn't let them open the door. They'd put them out of business. There's nobody they can call. In Reno, they call the local police, the security, to come in. But on a cruise ship, if you try to set that model up in the United States, they say, you're crazy, you can't do that. You got to have security for the passengers. The police have to be brought in at some point.
Well, give us an idea. How many people are there on these cruise ships? How many people are taking a cruise on a particular ship at a time?
They've just opened up our Grand Caribbean, just launched the largest ship in the world. Holds up to 9,000 people, 67,000 passengers, and 3,000 crew members, 2,000 to 3,000 crew members. Now, if you got a city with 9,000 or 8,000 people or 4,000 people, there's going to be criminals on that ship.
Right.
You can't avoid it. So here you got unlimited drinking. You sell the drinking passengers and no policemen. It's crazy.
Yeah, even a city of 9,000 people would have a police force of about 30 cops, 30 to 50 cops in some.
Absolutely.
Right, which is, a significant police force. And what about, like even in the airports, when you go to the airport, they have a Port Authority police there, and they have jails. Every airport has a little jail, a detention center, where if you're acting up, they throw you in there and they hold you. And they don't have that on a cruise?
They sometimes they'll put them in a holding area, but a lot of times they're left to go around the ship. Nothing has happened.
Amazing.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
In the late 90s, I think it was a Pan Am airplane blew up off an island, and everybody was killed as a result of that. Well, the passengers, airline passengers, were able to get together, and there's a law called Death in the High Seas Act. That airplane fell under that law. And the law, in effect, said, but the only thing you could cover is possible burial expense, but you can't take any legal action against the airline because the gas tank blew up. Clearly their fault. Well, the airline passengers got together in an association similar to ICB and were able to get an amendment to the law, to this, they call it DOSHA, that in fact the airlines were liable and you could take action against them. But guess what? The cruise lines fought that so that they remained under this old law called Death on the High Seas Act. That law was written in 1920, fully never intending for it to be for modern day cruise ships. So in effect, if you die on a cruise ship, it could be for an illness, or they screwed up, or you went overboard, somebody pushed you overboard. You can only file maybe for burial expenses, but you can take no other action. So let me give you an example. You get on an airplane in Miami, and you fly to London, and that plane crashes. You can take action. But if you get on a boat in Miami and sail to London, and that boat sinks or whatever happens or whatever other crime happens, you can't take action because the law written in 1920. And the cruise lines fight that tooth and nail. We've had that in every separate piece of legislation to eliminate that. It makes no sense.
What about like slip and falls, minor lawsuits? How does that handled?
Yeah.
You can't?
It's the same. If you live, you can take action.
Oh.
If you die, you can't take action. If that makes any sense. So if you get sick on an airplane, if you get sick on a boat, and there have been a lot of examples where people get sick on a boat, could be from the food, could be from all kinds of things, and they in effect die because of improper treatment. The families can't take any action. And we have a couple, two daughters, who lost both their parents on one of these boats that go down a riverboat in Panama.
Okay.
This is not the United States, it's Panama. And the cabin that their folks were in, because of poor electrical wiring, caught fire, and these parents died in that fire. And so to take action, they found out that because that boat sailed into the Pacific Ocean, it was covered by this DOSHA bill, which is a U.S. bill. So they had major issues of trying to take any legal action against the boat company, even though it was in Panama. Now, normally, DOSHA, Death on High Seas Act, applies to a boat that leaves the United States and comes back. But here was a boat in Panama that two people died of, that they tried to apply that law to avoid any legal responsibility. Another example, remember the British Petroleum explosions a few years ago in the Caribbean where several people were killed?
In the Gulfport or in the Gulf? Or?
Yeah, in the Gulf.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The victims' parents couldn't take action against British Petroleum because they were on the high seas covered under this Death in the High Seas Act. So they made an effort to get the law changed and were unsuccessful. So here's just one little law that is, if people get sick and they die, it's like the president of ICV. Her daughter died on a cruise ship because of an overdose of methanate that somebody had given her without her knowledge. She was covered, and they took the body off the ship, left it in a port in Mexico, where they did an autopsy with the mother not even there. And because of DOSHA, Death in the High Seas Act, she could take very limited action against the cruise line. Here they left the body in Mexico. And once she got it, the body was in a box. There was nothing there. Well, it's a crazy law.
It is crazy. Now, who's on the other side of this lobbying to keep this law in effect? Obviously, anybody with common sense, any congressman would say, "Oh, we need to pass a law." Who's besides the cruise line? I guess the oil companies too. Who's?
No. Well, there's a couple organizations. The main one, the cruise lines, belong to an organization called CLIA, which is the Cruise Line International Association. They're the chief lobbyists for the cruise lines. In fact, individual cruise lines, in theory, they're foreign corporations, I think, are somewhat prohibited in lobbying. So they use this CLIA, this trade association.
Okay, makes sense.
That spends up to $6 million for lobbyists every year. You can actually go on our website and see there's thousands of dollars paid to congressmen through this lobbying organization. Now, we're a little organization. We have no money to lobby. And we're up against an industry that's willing to spend millions of dollars to lobby for the cruise line industry. Because the cruise lines, by keeping their ships, their corporation in Panama and Liberia, not only do avoid certain laws, guess what? They avoid U.S. taxes. Even though they're making billions of dollars, they pay hardly any U.S. taxes because they put their corporation in Liberia. Every company should do that.
Yeah.
To avoid taxes.
You know, another thing, from my own life's experience, I've known people who, they tell me, "Oh, yeah, I used to work on the cruise ships," you know? It seems to be like people that are like in between the tracks, you know, like, you know, people are kind of like off the grid, and you know what I'm talking about? Like shady kind of folks go to work for the cruise lines. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. The cruise lines, they go to Indonesia to recruit people to work on the cruise line, or they go to third world countries. And that's the help on the cruise lines that is taking care of the passengers. And these people that are working on these cruise lines, they're working long hours, 7 days a week, up to 12 hours or more a day. And they're the ones that often take advantage of the cruise passengers. And let me give you an example. If you're robbed on a cruise ship, it has to be over $10,000 that you can prove before you can even file the claim. Well, the people that work on the ship know that.
Right. They
know that it's got to be a big item before. So you just rob people for less than $10,000. It's crazy.
Now, is anything done by the cruise ships, though, to discourage their employees from robbing and raping for the bad publicity? Is there
What happens is they get the crew member off the ship
right
as quickly as possible. In my daughter's case, they took the supervisor and got him off the ship far away so no action can be taken. And what happens then, a lot of times these people are then rehired by another cruise line. Instead of putting up a marker on the guy, so if Carnival calls Royal Caribbean, say, hey, you got anything on this guy? No. We think that it would be unfair to prejudice where the guy goes to work. Well, that's crazy.
Okay, we got to take another commercial break. We're with Kendall Carver, chairman of the International Cruise Victims Association. The website is internationalcruisevictims.org. And I believe there's a donate button on there, too. We can go there and donate to this. They're not being supported, and they're up against the $6 million a year lobbying. So this is something we'll need to be concerned about. We'll be right back with more of Kendall Carver, International Cruise Victims. And now a word from our sponsors.
Hi, folks. Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the Tea, your best defense.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. We're here with Kendall Carver, who is the chairman of the International Cruise Victims Association, internationalcruisevictims.org. Mr. Carver, you said you had a bunch of private investigators and stuff. A lot of times, you can find the person's ex-wife or something like that, or you can even talk to somebody off the record and say, hey, tell me something off the record that I can go back and tell these parents. Did you ever find out what happened with your daughter?
That's an interesting question. About a year after she went missing, the Cambridge police contacted me and said that a crew member on that ship wanted to talk to me. So this particular crew member lived in Canada, and I called him. And in effect, the crew member told me a story, that the story among the crew members was that the crew member was involved in her disappearance. Mm-hmm. Then he gave me the name of additional crew members. Well, we contacted those individuals, and they confirmed the story. That was the story, but we couldn't determine who the crew member was that might be involved. But that was the first indication we got of what might have happened to Marion. But the kind of the strange thing after that, and this may sound weird, about a month later, a woman in Seattle, called me on my cell. And she happened to be friends of a neighbor of ours that we lived next to in Darien, Connecticut, who vouched for this lady. And this lady told me a story that she'd, quote, been in touch with Marion, and that told about how she was, I guess you'd say, killed, and how her body was disposed of on the cruise ship by a crew member. About 2 years later, our minister, we go to a liberal Methodist church, and he said, Ken, you want to know what happened to Marion? I said, sure, I want to know what happened to Marion. So he said, well, there's a lady in the church, I'm convinced, knows what happened to Marion. And again, she was another psychic. So I said, let's get together. So we did. She told me exactly the same story that this woman had told us 2 years before, and that the crew members had told us. So, you can pursue this forever, but at some point you just have to release it. And that's the best answer I can give you of what happened to Marion. But the next important thing that happened is after about 14 months, we had not disclosed to anybody what had that we'd lost her daughter. So we decided to go public with her story. Now, how do you go public with a story that's 14 months old? Well, having worked in New York City, I knew one person that worked for CNN, and we were personal friends. So I called his wife and said, "Hey, our daughter's disappeared. Would your husband, who was a producer, have any interest?" So she had him call me, and he was doing something called Katrina with Anderson Cooper. So he called me from New Orleans, and I kind of told him the story, and he, in effect, said, "Ken, we're busy," and really gave me the brush off. So the next thing that happened is that I went to my landlord in New York City, who had a PR person that worked for him, and I went to a PR firm in Phoenix, about how do we go public with this. And the gentleman in New York said, after I told him the story, he said, "This is a story that needs to be told." The gentleman in Phoenix said, "Don't do it, Ken, they'll eat you up, the press will eat you up." So anyway, we had a conference call on a given day. And guess what? 2 hours later, I get a call from my friend, this is a few months later, saying, "Ken, we're going to put you on the Anderson Cooper show, and I'm going to come out and we're going to film it." That was like in November of 2005. So we became the first participants of the Anderson Cooper show. And it was shown multiple times. Then ABC picked the show up, and a congressman in Connecticut, Christopher Shea, there was a family in Connecticut, the Smith family, who had lost their son. And he was the honeymoon couple. Maybe you've heard the story.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. They were drinking absinthe, right?
Yeah, I don't know what they were drinking.
Okay.
He'd gone missing.
Right.
So Christopher, and we lived in Connecticut, Christopher Shea decided in December of 2005 to hold the first congressional hearing on the cruise line industry. So the people that testified were the FBI, the Coast Guard, and the cruise lines, but no victims. Well, then 3 months later, Christopher Shea says, "We're going to have another hearing. This time we're going to invite the victims to testify." So in March of 2016, we had our first congressional hearing. And I might add, we've had 8 congressional hearings since that beginning. And so anyway, we had the hearing, and our membership, let me tell you how our membership started. In January 1 of 2016, I knew of 3 other families that had lost children. So we got together and we formed a little group called International Cruise Victims. That was the beginning with 4 families. Well, since then, as I said earlier in the show, that little group has grown to have a membership in 34 countries, separate corporation in England and in Australia. But at that hearing, which is the first time I'd ever testified at a congressional hearing, we did something that nobody thought we would ever do. In the hearing, we came up with 10 simple points for improving safety on cruise ships. They were things that nobody could object to. And so that became our presentation. Here's the things the cruise lines can do to improve safety on cruise ships. Well, a congressman walked into the hearing set up by the cruise lines, and he started talking to the other cruise victims that were there. And he kind of one day he said, "What do you think we ought to do?" And they'd come up with a suggestion, and he'd put it down. He finally got to me, and he didn't know that we turned in earlier these 10 suggestions. So Christopher Shea said to this other congressman, I won't mention his name, "Read this." Well, the guy was taken back. They were logical things that cruise lines should do to improve safety.
Well, you know what, Ken? Let's take a little commercial break right now. When we get back, list those 10 things for us, okay? And did you get those 10 things passed?
Well, I'll talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk about it when we get back. We're with Kendall Carver, International Cruise Victims Association.
Hi, folks. Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Kendall Carver, the chairman of the International Cruise Victims Association. So, Ken, what did you come up with the 10 points, and did they get passed?
Okay, well, first of all, I tell people to go to our website, www.internationalcruisevictims.org. And at the top, there's tabs. It shows press releases, various things, but there's a community tab. And if you press on the community tab, it brings up several different major articles. One is the original 10-point program that we introduced on March 7th, 2006. So let me just run through these items. See, these are pretty simple items. Number one, there should be background checks on crew members. Create a database of reporting terminal employees, ensuring that the same employee will not be rehired by another cruise line. Now, that sounds pretty simple. And you can go on and read additional points. There should be international police, like sky marshals on all ships, so that the individual knows there is an independent, you got to acknowledge that there's independent police that will take action and not report to the cruise lines. Item number 3, there should be security of the crime scene. Basic security of the crime scene. It should be secured. And you can go through and see the various points. There should be structural enhancements like the railing around the ship, so people can't jump over or accidentally fall over. Seems pretty simple. There should be video surveillance cameras. You can't through London without being seen in a camera. Well, that should be the same on a cruise ship. And we suggest security bracelets be given to people so they know where they are. And missing or overboard passengers, that immediate action be taken. And I could talk a long time about that because eventually when we try legislation, we have passed legislation require manned overboard systems. They're available, and yet the cruise lines have not done it. The excursions which are bought and sold. I just had a case last week of some women that got off a ship in Cozumel, and a guy with a T-shirt that said Carnival Cruise Line or whatever cruise line offered to take them to a private resort. Well, when they got there, were raped, and then they went back to the ship. The FBI, and several days later, the FBI had no report of that happening. And the ships should be accountable to the U.S. government, not to some foreign country we know takes no action. So those are simple things. This little thing group that's been expanded to 13 items. But if you look at another community, you'll see these basic points. Let me start off with. Let me say this. This is the smartest thing we ever did, because this then eventually led to legislation. This was presented at the first hearing. At the next hearing, Chairman Cummins said, if you looked at these 10 points, and they got no answer. Well, then he ordered the cruise lines to meet with us in Washington, D.C., to go through these and determine what they could do to improve safety. So we held that meeting. And they were then given a deadline in December of 2017 to say what were they willing to do on these simple proposals to improve safety. Guess what? They came up with a 31% report. They weren't willing to do anything. So then we moved to the Senate. This would be now our 4th or 5th hearing, where John Kerry had sponsored the bill in the Senate, Doris Matsui and Representative Poe in the House, but John Kerry took it on in the Senate. And after that hearing and going through these points, John Kerry and Representative Matsui and Poe introduced legislation to improve, which incorporated these points. Nothing here is gigantic. It also put in a requirement for man overboard systems that required that the individual be notified that if they have crime on the ship, they have a right to the FBI and bypass the security on a cruise ship. Well, and also it was required that these could be made public on a site maintained by the Coast Guard. Well, here we are 7 years later, and only in the last couple of years are the crimes starting to be reported. If an individual goes to Department of Transportation, Cruise Line Safety, you can see the quarterly reports. Now, is that all of the reports? I'm not sure it is, but at least it's a major start on reporting to the public, because people call up and say, what's the safest cruise line? Well, they can look at that report and see some obvious ships or cruise lines that are having major problems. So we took a report of just telling our stories at that first hearing, and then through 4 additional hearings, coming up with legislation that was eventually passed in 2010.
What is the procedure for a man overboard? Do they have one?
The answer is, I'm on a committee, International Association for Standards, ISO. The cruise line's argument was, the bill said they had to put these systems on their ships if they're available. Well, the cruise line said, well, we don't know the standards. So they've dodged that for years. Well, earlier this year, the International Association of Standards, the ISO, released the standards for man overboard systems on cruise ships. So there is no excuse anymore. And it's the law. And in fact, the cruise lines are supposed to be fined if they don't put it on. So that's the step. Are they putting it on? It's a struggle. I just did a memo last week where the cruise lines are saying, we don't really need these things. Well, it's the law. We passed the law. And but what they are, they're devices that can trigger a person going overboard that automatically advises the bridge that somebody's gone overboard. And in a meeting in Washington, D.C., I was there a couple of years ago. I was at the Marriott having breakfast with 2 people. And I told them what I did. And I said, what do you do? Well, it turns out this guy is with the Coast Guard on search and rescue. I said, would it help you to know exactly when and where somebody goes overboard? And the answer was obviously yes. So if they put these systems on, which are available, you might actually recover some of these people. And on average, there have been over 300 people go overboard over the last several years. Once in a while, they find them, but most of the time they don't. And what does that cost the U.S. taxpayer? That costs the U.S. taxpayer hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every time the Coast Guard goes out and starts searching the Caribbean for somebody, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. And very seldom ever find them. We've done Freedom of Information Act on the cost of these search and rescues, and it's upwards to $1 million. The taxpayers are paying for that, and against an industry that doesn't pay taxes. And yet systems are available by law to be on cruise ships. So we are working very closely with Congress and others to make sure that this law is enforced, particularly when the ISO has issued standards recently.
Now, how about this? How about like when you're getting on and off the boat? They must have a ticket system, and then it's probably not a paper ticket like it was in the old days, like a key card or something. So they must keep track of who's coming on the ship and who's leaving the ship, right?
They do now. In the case of my daughter, they had no such records. So they do now count the number of people going on and off the cruise ships.
Amazing.
Yeah. But a lot of times, in umpteen cases where people have fallen off the ship, and they don't know it for several days.
Yeah, but I'm saying like that same card or that ticket or a little beacon or whatever, a little fob, they make things like that now. You could carry it on and off. And if you fell off the boat, it would set off an alarm right away. It seems like a no-brainer, and it would be so cheap. Those things are so cheap. Like a garage door opener. It's like nothing.
Well, these man overboard systems aren't expensive.
Yeah.
Speaking, they're putting water slides on boats.
Right.
They're putting all kinds of toys on boats, and yet they're not willing to spend a minimum amount of money to put on man overboard systems. It's crazy.
Now, what about when, because we're almost out of time, but when this honeymoon couple, right? Now, that was all over the news. Now, when that was on the news, the TV shows and the radio shows, they must have been looking for someone like you to come on and give the other side. Did that happen?
Well, it eventually happened when we came together at the first congressional hearing.
Okay.
Because the first congressional hearing was about the Smith family and about our daughter, Mary. So that's where we really first came together. And, we had the same issue. And when you think, there's 17 people this year have gone overboard. Think of those families. But most families don't have the resources to follow up as we did. And the Smiths have done a lot. But we kind of moved in a different direction. I mean, they've zeroed in on looking for their son who murdered his son. After a year and a half, I came to the conclusion, hey, there's a problem with this industry. So we need to see if we can pass some laws to change the industry, because that's the only way they'll ever do it. And we've been successful in passing laws. Have they all been enforced? The answer is no, not as well as they should have. But a lot of them have been enforced. And it's gotten the attention of the world. I did an interview a couple of weeks ago in Finland. It's all over the world. I did a congressional hearing in Australia. And when you would think the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, would take this on. But in effect, they haven't. They just write various rules and then say it's up to the flag state to take on any compliance. Well, they don't do it. They don't go on and send people out when a woman's raped or goes overboard. I don't think they've ever had a case that I'm aware of that they've taken action. That's why the cruise lines flag their ships in those countries. They're third world countries, and it becomes a revenue source for these countries. But it's not designed to protect the public. It's more designed to protect the cruise lines.
So now, if all these rapes are going unprosecuted or uninvestigated even, then this must be known among these type of criminals, because they talk to each other and stuff like that this is a haven to go on a cruise and do whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, one of the keys is we passed this law, and Senator Rockefeller, the last thing he did...
Nelson Rockefeller?
What's that?
Nelson Rockefeller?
Nelson Rockefeller.
Well, this is back in the 70s then.
No, it's correction, J. Rockefeller.
J. Rockefeller, okay.
Yeah. He was chairman of the Commerce Committee, and he held 3 hearings. And we got certain things changed in that the cruise lines are required to report within 3 hours any crime. And the FBI is to contact that person on the ship immediately and then greet them when they get off. So we are getting better compliance. But is it happening in all cases? The answer is no. You really need the security on the cruise ships. But because of Rockefeller taking the bill where it was and making some of these things enforced, that has made a difference.
So then I suppose something like a domestic violence case, like a husband and wife get into a fight and they're slapping each other in the room, nothing's going to happen for that. And nothing. Because what are you going to call the FBI when they get back to shore? And nothing's going to happen for that.
No, nothing will happen. In fact, there was a cruise, I don't know, it was 10 days or 2 weeks going to Australia. And people got in a fight. The other passengers locked their doors because of the violence that was going on the ship. It's incredible. Here they were at sea. Now, let me say this. Our bill, in theory, only protects a passenger if they leave the United States on a cruise ship or come back to the United States. If they're in the Mediterranean on a cruise, they're not covered under the law. And our goal is to have those crimes covered, whether they're happen in the United States or happen wherever in the world. It's only logical. And you'd think the cruise lines would want to do this. It'd be tremendous press.
Well, I just recalled seeing on Facebook a post from a friend of mine saying that, hey, I'm going on a cruise. How much? And you're allowed to bring like 2 bottles of wine, but there's even the corkscrews. So they're searching you when you come on. They're looking for booze and corkscrews when you come on the cruise. Are they looking for drugs and weapons too when you come on?
Well, the answer is they do, but a lot of drugs still are being carried on cruise ships.
Sure.
It's being reported. Now, how they get on, who knows? But they're getting on cruise ships. And, I think there was an article last week on crew members that were caught, with drugs. So it's one way to move them.
Well, what about metal detectors? Do they have to bring, are there metal detectors you go through when you go on a cruise?
Yeah, I think there are probably metal detectors for a gun or something like that.
Because they had that case with those terrorists with the Klinghoffer, right? Yeah.
Well, that goes back many years ago where they took a guy in a wheelchair and pushed him overboard.
Right. And so you would think now after that international terrorism that there would be some kind of police force on the ships. Nothing changed after that?
Nothing had changed. This is an industry that does not want to change anything. They would think this DOSHA bill, Death and ICs Act, where people get sick and die, and the cruise lines are responsible, where people go overboard. We have one case where they photographed a woman that was raped by a crew member. Then he tried to throw her overboard, but she fought. Her body's all beat up, and they got the guy only because she fought him off. You tried to throw her overboard. How many times did that happen? You get rid of the evidence, you just throw the person overboard.
Right.
And to have unlimited drinks being served by cruise lines. I mean, a bar here in the United States, if you had unlimited drinks, there are laws that say you can't, the bartender's responsible. But that's a revenue source for them, is serving drinks and alcohol. They don't want you to bring your stuff on because they want to sell it to you on the boat. And as you come on the boat, they hand you a glass.
Oh, really?
Of punch or whatever that's all spiked. That's just standard operating procedure. Then they put it on your bill.
Oh, really? Oh, boy. We're almost out of time. What do you want to leave us with in all this?
Well, let me say this. What are the safest ships and what are the unsafe ships? What statistics we have show that the 3 and 4 day cruise ships that go out of Miami or New York or wherever are the least safe because they're party ships. People go on there to have a party.
Okay.
So they drink and do whatever on that. The longer cruises, that are a week or longer, generally is an older crowd and doesn't have the crime rates of the ships that are for short duration. Let me tell you something else you need to be aware of. Of all the rapes, which is the most common crime, a third of those rapes are reported on minors. And very seldom is action ever taken. You know why they don't take action? Because they don't want to take the person that did the crime and label him. What's the label when somebody does a sexual crime or any
pedophile, child molester, pedophile?
Yeah. They're labeled for life. So they don't want to do that. So these crimes on minors aren't reported and no action is taken. So, but people get on a boat and they turn their kids loose. That's crazy.
Yeah, they have that Disney cruise, which is probably 90% kids.
Yeah, well, there's been cases where there's pedophiles on Disney cruises. They have a video a few years ago of a child getting on an elevator, and the crew member went in and accosted her on the elevator. And it was filmed, and a TV station got a hold of that film. So you're entering a world that you need to be very careful You don't want to be alone. A single woman is vulnerable. And there are risks. And that's, people think they're just on there for a good time. Well, there are risks. I mean, if you went into any city of several thousand people, there are no policemen serving any alcoholic beverages, you wouldn't take your family into that city.
Yeah, I said before, my daughter and my ex-wife went on a cruise, and I didn't think, I didn't even suspect anything like this could even happen. I just assumed,
That's part of the job that ICV does.
Yeah.
And we do get a lot of press of making people aware of the dangers of a cruise ship. They could be fun. They should be fun. But when a crime occurs, there needs to be accountability and action taken.
It seems so, the basic requirements, just to have a couple of cops on it. It's just even 10 cops, that
are independent of the cruise ship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
I mean, if a woman is raped today and they take her to a hospital, the police show up and take a report. That's standard operating procedure. Another standard operating procedure here in Arizona, if you call the police, you have to sign a form that you've been given your rights. Well, cruise lines have supposed to give people their rights, but they don't do it. Well, if they had to sign a form, the victim, there'd be more of these crimes reported.
Yeah, it seems like all very basic stuff that could be affected here to avoid a lot of problems. I'm surprised that the cruise ships don't want to cooperate more. Kendall Carver, Kendall Carver, thank you so much. Chairman of the International Cruise Victims Association. You can find the website at internationalcruisevictims.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then we had Kendall Carver, International Cruise Victims Association. My God. I tell you, now you hear this stuff, though, because I've known some guys that have worked in these cruise ships that, were real characters, and you hear, I want to go back and work on those cruise ships. And, you think back, these are pretty rough guys. All right. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Reverend Ed Pinkney. We've got some really good news with the Rev. That the Supreme, you know what? I'll let him tell you. How's that? Well, we got really good news. He's out of prison. We know that. They threw him in prison for this crazy charge that there were 4 dates forged on a recall petition. That there were 4 dates that were incorrect. They'd been written over and changed. They changed the dates. Oh my God! Reverend Pinkney threw him in prison. Gave him 67 years old. They gave him 2 to 10 years. I think he did 3.5, 4 years, and. God bless Reverend Pinkney, but we have him coming on next to tell us what the rest of the story, right, as they say. Hey, don't forget, I'm going to be on with Amy Villela, amyforthepeople.com, May 11th. I'm going to be doing a little telethon action. We're trying to get John Barber to come down there with us. If you enjoy the show with John Barber. And now a word from our sponsors.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all those kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites. And we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Subhash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find a link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also AwakeRadio.us.
People are waking up. They're standing up to those pushing pesticides and GMOs as safe alternatives for a starving world. What a bunch of crap! I tell you, I'd rather eat dirt. So I drink Life Change Tea. It's an herbal drink, cleansing my body of toxic sludge and nasty chemicals, and of course, ridding the intruders that are hidden in my so-called food. And by the way, Life Change Tea is non-GMO and organic. No fillers, no yuck. Just a great defense against you-know-what. May the supplement force awaken you. Don't fall to the dark side. Sorry. I went to the movies last night. Anyway, enough said. How do you get that herbal drink and change your life? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. You will awaken. You will get stronger, and you might even lose a bit of weight. So awaken to Life Change Tea and the many one-of-a-kind supplements at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. May the supplement force be with you.
Okay, welcome back. We are joined by the Reverend Ed Pinkney. And I've been leaving in suspense here because I want the Reverend to tell you himself what the good news is. Reverend Pinkney, are you there?
I'm here, and thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. I'm just excited today, Ed. It's about to bust out of me. You got to give me the go ahead to say it, but maybe we should set the stage for them.
You know what? When I first met you, the first time I ever had you on the show, you were facing time. The trial didn't even come yet. And I said, it's going to be a depressing show. And here comes this guy, comes on, his big smile, kept saying, outstanding, Ed. But you know what, man? Now that I see when you're really happy, there's no comparison, man.
Hey, you know what? The word was around the community that I kept saying, it's going down. It's going down. And News 57, the ABC News, interviewed me, and she said, what is your final words? And I said, it's going. And I'm not taking no prisoners because I can't afford to feed them. And she said, wow. She said, I just love that statement. And she did a good job. Usually, they try to butcher you on those shows with, but she did a tremendous job. Everything I said, she allowed to be on TV and stuff like that. She really did a tremendous job. But the newspaper kind of like chopped me up. You expect that.
Oh yeah, he's still guilty anyway. Doesn't matter. He got away with stuff.
So we ain't worried about it. So what? We still got 2.5 years out of it.
That's a sin. Hey, remind the audience, who's Reverend Ed Pinkney, and how'd you wind up in this situation, and how'd you get out of it? Let's hear the whole story.
Well, what happened was I have always stood up for the people. I started court watching in the year 2000, and I've been court watching ever since. Matter of fact, I went over there Wednesday just so they could see my face. But 4 years ago, I was taking it was my wife's birthday, and I was taking her out to dinner. And before we can get to Kalamazoo, which is about 30 minutes away from my home, the SWAT team had surrounded my house. And what they did, they blocked the street off. Nobody can come in. Nobody can go out of their home. They call martial law. That, nobody is coming out. And kept everybody in. So when I got the call, the first thing I asked was, who they looking for? They looking for you. And me, what for? He said, you ought to know that. I said, what I do? I'm trying to figure out what I do. Maybe I killed somebody or something. Didn't do it. So I'm at the restaurant. We want to finish the meal before I go see my lawyer, and I decided that we was going to eat, and then we would go out and go to go see the attorney and find out what's going on. When I got to the attorney office, the first thing happened was that he called the prosecutor, and the prosecutor said that he had a warrant for my arrest, and it was 5 counts of forgery on a recall petition, and 6 counts allowing someone to sign the recall petition twice. And I said, wow, no, I didn't do it. So I said, well, should be no problem. I'll turn myself in on Monday. The prosecutor told my attorney, absolutely not. We're going to be looking for him. The SWAT team and everybody was driving all over the city, looking for where I could be, looking for my car. And they knew my car and everything, and they was just driving, trying to find out who hung out or who I knew, and went by their house, and they was determined.
All points bulletin, right? They got to be on the lookout for Reverend Pinkney.
Right. Then it got News 57. Now they was at the house also, and they made an announcement over the news. Reverend Pinkney is on the run.
Lock your doors and windows.
Right. Turn yourself in. Yeah. And I guess it was, they like to make, please turn yourself in. He's dangerous. He's dangerous, and then they used I think they said he's dangerous and desperate. I don't know. People was telling me they could have been making it up. I don't know, but they, they say ABC News 57 said that you was dangerous and want the people to be aware of you. And the next morning, I'm turning myself in. It must have been about 10 police cars following me in to the courthouse.
Wait, the Reverend is covered in ink from the crime.
Yeah. And but I knock them off their horse. Because when I get in the courthouse, now listen to this. I said, y'all had to send the SWAT to my house? And the first thing he said was, and then I started laughing. I said, I wasn't at home. When I said I wasn't at home, they was mad. They were, you got about 20 cops all around there, And I said, well, I know I'm dangerous, so you be careful. Yeah, I said, I ain't made no false move with you guys, because I know y'all came to kill, didn't you? And so I gets into the courtroom, and this judge, Charles Lasada, no arrest. I'm just walking, me and my attorney just walking in the courtroom, and for about 30 minutes. Now listen to this. He's telling me that this is the worst crime in the history of mankind. He said that I never had a crime this terrible. I'm trying to figure out what is he talking about. He's telling me that that there has never been a crime this terrible. And I don't know what he's talking about. I'm thinking that he got a body in the back that they can roll out and said, I killed somebody. And for 30 minutes, Ed, he called me every name but Reverend Peace. He called me everything. And then he said bond at $30,000 for a recall petition.
Wow.
A recall petition. $30,000. And listen to this. my wife or myself could not use the internet, and we could not have the internet in our home. And they put me on tether. I was so dangerous. They had to monitor me by the satellite up in the sky. I'm shocked. I cannot believe this. And but we brought the bondsman with us, made sure so I didn't have to go inside the jail or nothing. Everything was processed and ready to roll. And the first day we had the preliminary examination. Now they charged me with 5 counts of felony, 5 counts of felony, and a felony forgery. And they said, the prosecutor's first word came out of his mouth, "We don't have any evidence that Reverend Pinkney did anything wrong. But we can always say circumstantial evidence by him being involved with the recall petition," which was so unusual that, then the judge said that we're going to let the jury decide. So they started the trial on my birthday, October 27th. And November 3rd, this all-white jury that no evidence came into play that I did anything wrong. Matter of fact, no evidence came into place that anybody did anything wrong. Not just me, but anybody. And they found me guilty of 5 counts of forgery. And the 6 misdemeanor charge, they dismissed. They found me not guilty. So they figured they got me on the felony charge. They had it all planned out. They knew exactly what was going to happen. They knew exactly what was going on. And the judge told them, he said, whatever decision you make, it's going to be final. It will not be overturned. He was wrong on that issue.
Right.
But he told them that. I never heard that before. And I've been court watching since the year 2000. And I go to all the trials and everything. I never heard a judge tell somebody that your decision is final and it will not be overturned. I really got something good to say about that. What I want to do is more or less
like lay the groundwork.
What I really want to do is make sure that the people get the message more than anything else. Because this is a real busy time for us. The phone been jumping off the hook since 3:00 on May 1st, and I had to cut the phone off in order to get some rest around here. But I like this thing. But anyway, on December the 15th, the judge sentenced me to 30 months to 10 years in prison. And his thing was that I was going to die in prison. They shot me all the way up to Marquette, Michigan, which is more than 500 miles from my home. And they put me in a cell that was molded, full of mold, and it started eating me up from the inside out. I had lost over 30 pounds, and I was really sick. I didn't know how to neutralize it, So only thing I could think of was that I need to start working out. I started working out, and I started keeping my system clean. I will make sure that I cleaned my system out, and I got back healthy. They also accused me of making a 3-way call, which they knew that there was no 3-way call made. But during this process, we had filed an appeal with the Court of Appeals, and they ruled against me. They said that there's absolutely no evidence that I did anything wrong, but I must have told somebody to do it. There was no evidence to support this. None. Not one piece of evidence that I told anybody to do anything. But yet and still, what they did was said, all 3 of them, it was 3 of them, voted to uphold the conviction. And so far, the judge was right. He said it will not be overturned. He was right so far. so far. So we decided that we were going to appeal to the Supreme Court because 168.937 was not a criminal offense. I told them that. Matter of fact, the day of the trial, I went on the internet and looked it up to be sure because it says it was a penalty and not a crime. And
a violation. It was a violation, not a crime, right?
Right, absolutely. Okay. And so the judge decided to go ahead with the trial. And that's when they convicted me, sent me all the way up there to prison. And we filed the appeal with the Court of Appeal, which I thought for sure that they was going to release me on appeal bond. You see, I was so positive that I kept myself packed because I knew that they was going to give me appeal bond or dismiss the charge. But that didn't happen. They came back, and the first thing they said was, Pinkney must have told somebody to do this. We don't believe that somebody would do this without Pinkney knowing. I said, well, there's no evidence to support that. How could you come up with an idea that Pinkney had to know this? It was just ridiculous. And here's something that I'm going to throw this in, not to throw the story off, but this last Saturday, I went up and they invited me to speak at her husband's church. One of the judges' husband is a pastor. And I spoke at his church this Saturday, and I gave it to her. I was nice to her in a way. I could have been a evil and vendettic. I could have been really angry, but I wasn't. But I just did what I had to do. But anyway, let me get to the good news.
Well, let's take a break. Let's take a commercial break.
Okay. Commercial because it's time for the good news.
But before we do, how much time did you wind up doing in prison?
30 months.
30 months.
And another 11 months on parole.
I could tell you, 30 months is a long time for anybody. It's a long, long time for someone 67 years old, okay? But there's guys out there with burglary charges, car theft charges, all kind of charges, drug sale, possession, that don't get out, man, probation, with no charges. But and then they violate probation, and then they get thrown back in, and maybe they do a year, and they get out in a year. With all these 1 year mandatory minimums, they get out right at the 1 year. Even if they violate the probation, they violate. And anyway, but here's Reverend Pinkney in there for 30 months. We'll be right back. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company located in India. So you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service to boot. They offer all kinds of services, business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshore research networking, customer care, press release content writing and distribution, and much, much more. They offer website development, e-commerce solutions, mobile responsive designs. Now, I've personally worked with Subhash for over 10 years. This is the man that puts out my press releases. They've done work on my websites, so I can personally recommend SubhashTechnosis.com. You can find a link to Subhash Technosis at OppermanReport.com and also awakeradio.us.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99.
Hi, folks. Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
You can have your ad played here at OppermanReport.com every Friday night, 5 p.m., and Saturday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on Friday nights, too, we do a live portion for 1 hour that I just do a live monologue. The ads are very, very inexpensive, and they're also played in the Opperman Report member section. In the member section, you can find all kinds of exclusive content that you won't find anywhere else. It's as cheap as $6 a month, $20 a quarter, or $75 for a year. If you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com, I'll set you up with a little special deal there where you get a discount if you PayPal me directly, and you even get a copy of my book. I want to thank William Ramsey, who helps us produce the show and book guests. You can find William Ramsey, who's an excellent author, at William Ramsey Investigates on YouTube.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here talking to the Rev Ed Pinkney from bhbanco.org, by the way. That's his website. You want to read up about all this good news. So what happened? You went in prison for 30 months and 11 months probation. Did you finish your probation?
It ended on yesterday. Which was, listen, I had the best parole officer that you could ever have. And I was so proud of her. Whatever I asked, it was nothing too great for me. And she went beyond the call of duty. She made being on parole her way. Everything you have to do, you have to ask. If I wanted to go across state line to get a burger or something, you had to ask. If I wanted to go somewhere to see my children and things like that, you always have to ask. Everything you have to do, you have to ask permission for everything. And they have the right to say no. You know, even a man, I'm 69 years old, about to be 70. I had to ask this young, who I'm twice her age, had to ask her permission to go places.
Yeah,
can you believe? You know,
there's circumstances. When you're on parole, you have to even ask to open up a checking account.
I couldn't have one.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't have a checking account, and I couldn't go. Matter of fact, I couldn't even go in a bank.
Yeah,
and they had all kind of rules, trying to stop me some kind of way. You see, I got a wife. She goes into the bank, so I don't need to go in.
Right.
You know. And they had all different kind of rules that you had to follow. No drinking. You can't even use mouthwash with alcohol in it. And it was just so many things. And it's terrible. But what I tried to do, they had their rules laid out, and I had to follow their rules because I wasn't going to do anything that would violate one of their rules, whatever it is.
So we only got about 8 minutes left. We got about 8 minutes left. So tell us what happened when the good news.
All right. I'm ready to go. I'm thinking we're going 2 hours. An hour. Okay, well let me get to the point here because I'm fired up now. I'm really excited. Ed. You got me this way. You wrong. That is not the right procedure to keep me all fired up. It said you got 8 minutes. Anyway, here's what happened. On May 1st, May Day. Remember May Day is a very important day. not only to me, but to everybody else. But at 3:00 on May Day, my attorney called. He said, I got some great news for you. I said, what kind of news can you got? That would be great, because I didn't think they'd be ready to make a decision yet. He said, the Supreme Court had just ruled in your favor that there was no such charge. You should have never been charged in the first place. You should definitely with a felony. He said the Supreme Court 6-0 that they was wrong. And when he said that, that was a drop the phone moment. I could, cause I was so happy. I mean, it showed like if I wasn't careful, I could have had a heart attack or something. It was just that wonderful just to hear that, we actually won one, and remember this, the way they ruled, they said this case, it have to be vacated and dismissed of all charges, everything. And it was so exciting, and the community had picked up on it, and they're kind of excited, but it's a Pinkney thing. When Pinkney do things, it makes it that way. But here's what I did. On yesterday, I went up to Barron County Courthouse. As usual, court watch. I ran into the chief judge, and me and him talking. We just holding a comment. He said, well, he said, what we gonna do with you? Every time we go up against you, we lose. I said, well, you beat me in the trial. Which, I know that, you up to no good with that. I know you have your juries and your people. He said, but this is the second time that you have put on. I said, no, this is the second time I have spanked y'all. And I'm going to continue to spank y'all. Then as we was talking, the judge came up that was in the trial. He came up and I stuck my hand out to shake his hand. My hand, and I tried to squeeze it. Squeezing his hand and still talking to him. Tell him no, and I'm saying hard feelings. I'm going. I'm about to break it. I'm afraid. And then I let it go. His whole face was so red, and he couldn't say. He just stood. He couldn't move because maybe he didn't believe what he was saying. But I'm squeezing in. I'm looking him dead in his eye. I still haven't took my eyes off his eye because I want him to see. You see. And the chief judge, he's still talking to me. He said, yeah, Pinkney, I want you to keep a lower profile. I said, if I keep a lower profile, that wouldn't be me. I'll be somebody else. I can't do that. And he said, come on, Pinkney, you know that they're going to be out to get you. I said, I know it. And then I'm looking right at the judge as I'm saying, I know it. And when I looked at him, he said, then Judge Bruce said, come on, I got to go. Then The Rock went with him. He was froze. He couldn't move. He couldn't move.
Now, Rev, can they try to appeal this? Can the DA try to appeal this decision?
No, it's
fine.
It's not going to.
Okay.
That's matter of fact, they lose on that too. Or either, it makes them look bad. See, what I want to do, I want to go and prosecutorial misconduct,
right,
and also judicial misconduct. These are complaints that I'm planning on filing, and even if nothing happens, I want them to know I know that you did something wrong, and we keep letting these people off the hook. This is why they're able to do it and get away with it. But we let them off the hook. We don't. Okay, you did something wrong, but it's just a defendant, so we ain't got to worry about that. No, you're going to be worrying about what I'm going to do, because I'm definitely looking at ways to file lawsuits against them.
Now, can you? Because these would be disciplinary complaints where they would be disciplined. But what about you filing a civil rights lawsuit that your civil rights have been right? Yeah.
That's what I'm. See what I'm going to do. I'm going to connect it with the when they sent me to prison for the biblical scripture.
Right.
See, we never did challenge that, and I shouldn't have listened to them, but I did. And knowing me, my humble self, my nice self, I'm so humble that I said, all right, if that's the way y'all feel, that's the way it's going to be. And I didn't file, but what I'm going to do, we're going to connect the two and show what they have done and how they constantly are doing the same thing.
It's a pattern. It's a pattern of discriminatory political what is that? Persecution. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And the key word is a pattern. And this is what they do, but they're up against the right person. You know, it's unfortunate that I had to go to prison twice. And twice it was overturned. And, you know, but it it gives the people hope that, you know, if we do what we're supposed to do, we can win this. See, it's us against them. These evil, wicked people, this is what they do. And they get away with it. You got people, when I was in prison, this white lady, she sent me a letter from St. Joseph, Michigan, at all the places in the world. She sent me a letter. She said 33% of all the people that live in Barron County are good people. She said they're real good people. She said, but the problem is 67% are bad people. She said, when she said that, you know what I said? It blew my mind because I've been saying 80-20. But she came out, and then these are her words. These are her numbers. These are not Reverend Pinkney numbers. These are her numbers. She said 67%. And the problem is the 67% overpowers the 33%. And that's why we have a Barron County on this that's still hanging nooses and burning crosses. She said that. She says, even she's rich, she said, filthy rich, but she's intimidated by these people. And when she wrote the letter, she apologized. She said she's so sorry that she didn't come out and support. But I've been home. She haven't contacted me. I know she's intimidated, but it's okay. That one letter did more for me than anything that I could think of.
Reverend Pinkney, we're so happy to have you back out and have you safe. And on the fight now, we're going to take them down. We're going to get a lawsuit. How can people get a hold of you? Promote your website.
Here's the thing. I'm trying hard to fix it. I got the biggest church in Benton Harbor now. After I got out of prison, it was awarded to me with a school. And we need a roof. The roof costs $30,000. And you know I don't have it. But those of you who out there who want to support it, please, you can send a check to Banco, B-A-N-C-O, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. Banco, B-A-N-C-O, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. Or you can call me, 269-925-0001. That's it. And I need all the help I can get, because this fight is just beginning.
What about bhbanco.org? Is there still a PayPal button on there?
There's a PayPal on there, absolutely.
Okay, great.
bhbanco.org. You can pay. You can send some cash by PayPal. There's a PayPal button right on there, and whatever you send, I appreciate it. 10, 15, 20, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 100,000. I'm just happy.
No amount to turn down. Reverend Pinkney, hey, God bless you, brother.
I got to tell you this, Ed. I am so happy today that I'm just so happy to be on your show. I'm bubbling over, Ed. You need to stop this. This don't look good.
This is the happiest show we've had so far, my friend. And I was happy when you got out, but I'm happier now.
I'm really happy. And thank you so much, Ed.
No, thank you, Reverend, for coming on the show. God bless you. bhbanco.org. God bless you, sir.
All right. Take care.
Good night. And you got Reverend Ed Pinkney, man. You got to love this guy. You got to love him every single time. bhbanco.org. Every time he's on the show, it's always a pleasure to have him on and support his work. And the guy's fighting. It's going to be 80. Going to be 80 now. Is that what he said? Or 70? No, it's going to be 70, 67. He's like 69 now. Going to be 70. Not giving up. Still fighting. It's encouraging to all of us. We got to keep fighting. Don't give up. If you like the show, go to Opperman Report at Gmail. Go to OppermanReport.com. We have a member section with more shows and videos and documents, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to be throwing up some stuff there. I got some Son of Sam docs I'm going to throw up. And some, what else did they want? Oh, I got the Palfrey, the DC Madam phone logs. I got to throw those up there too. Got to get around to them. We're working overtime here, going nuts. If you want a discount on the member section, contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com. And what I'll do for you is tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 13 months for $60, but you got to PayPal me directly, okay? We can really use that because, we're still a little bit short. But what are you going to do? And I got no money to eat or anything, so we're broke here. So if you want to support the show, oppermanreport@gmail.com. 13 months for $60. You can't go wrong. Good night, guys. God bless you, Reverend Pinkney. Thank you so much. Kendall Carver with the... what was that? The cruise? It's close. I'm exhausted. All right, guys. Thank you. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites. And we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.